Jordan Marshall is the top target. Stacey Gage is another top target. I would probably say Jarrett Gibson is a little bit of a target because he's from IMG and Ohio State does like those IMG guys. But it all starts with Jordan Marshall in state.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw what this feels weird to say it, but I don't know why. I had the privilege of watching Jordan Marshall play this past fall. For anyone that is from the state of Ohio or that is watching this, Jordan Marshall plays at Archbishop Moeller down in Cincinnati, and I watched Marshall take over the Moeller St. Xavier game, which if anyone knows what that game is about, that's one of the most important high school games in the state of Ohio. It means everything down to folks in Cincinnati. And I think he had 200 all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns, had the walk-off touchdown. And when I say walk-off, I mean he walked into the end zone because they decided not to cover the guy who has, almost 30 Division I offers. And I remember standing there in the end zone, and I'm just like, how does this guy not have no? How is no one on him? I don't get this. But yeah, Jordan Marshall, I think he has to be 1A on Tony Alford's board. Has to be. He's an in-state prospect from a school that Ohio State thinks very highly of. You can look at, guys they've taken from Moeller in the past. They think very highly of him and his abilities, what he can do as a runner. His field vision is remarkable for a junior, now rising senior. How he can see the fields, how he can see the field, stick his foot in the ground and either cut, inside or make a juke outside. And it's amazing. What he can do on the field is amazing. And he has a unique ability of speed and power that you don't see often on a high school football field. And that's why he has almost, I think it's 29 Division I offers right now. But the 2 offers that are meaning the most right now for Jordan Marshall are Ohio State and Michigan. These are 2 programs that they love running backs, especially Michigan. I mean, look what Blake Corum did. If he hadn't, torn his ACL, I believe was the injury, I would have loved to have seen him. We all wanted to see him play against Ohio State and see what he could have done against Ohio State. But he didn't, and that game again happened the way it did. But Blake Corum, I think, arguably was one of, if not the best running back last year, and he's playing at Michigan, and that's what Michigan is selling to is recruiting to Jordan Marshall right now. Then they're very similar size. Blake Corum and Jordan Marshall, very similar size, around that 5'11", flirting with 6 foot. Jordan Marshall right now is, if I had to guess, I don't have the measurement right in front of me, but when I saw him, he looked about 185, 190. And at that weight, with that height and moving at that size, watch out. Watch out, man. That's a freight train coming down on you there. But I think as it relates to Ohio State, what they are, the pitch to Jordan Marshall is, he didn't really grow up the biggest Ohio State fan. So that's not the avenue that they're going to go down and say, hey, you've been watching the Buckeyes since you were a kid, and now you have the opportunity to put on the scarlet and gray. That's not really the pitch. The pitch is more like, hey, you see J.K. Dobbins, tearing it up when he's healthy in the NFL right now. That's what you can do here. And, it just so happens that J.K. Dobbins was in this room. Travion Henderson right now, what he did as a freshman, you come here, you'll have that opportunity because Mayan Williams, gone after this next season. Some pretty big decisions for Travion Henderson and Evan Pryor, if Evan Pryor can stay healthy. And then that just leaves a room with Dallin Hayden and Latrell Hartson, a preferred walk-on from Massillon right now. So the emphasis on Jordan Marshall is so important for Ohio State. It is arguably, I mean, literally right behind finding a quarterback is landing Jordan Marshall.
I think it's even more important. I think he's the most important player in this class for Ohio State. And maybe we disagree on that, but this is an in-state kid. On3 has him as a top 50 prospect. He's a top 5 running back. Things like this do not happen in the state of Ohio. They just don't right now because the way the high school football is so messed up, and they're not letting kids 7 on. They're not letting spring football happen. Kids are behind. Jordan Marshall is not behind at all. You usually have to go to Texas, Florida, Virginia for Trevion Henderson, North Carolina for Evan Pryor. You go national to find a running back. Texas, J.K. Dobbins. You really do go national to find a running back. This is a kid. I can hop on 71 South from my house and be at Jordan Marshall's high school in about an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half. That is not something that happens at Ohio State very often. You have to get Jordan Marshall. You have to. And if you're not gonna get him, it better not be to Michigan, especially with what's going on the field right now between Ohio State and Michigan. This is an absolutely, it is imperative that Ohio State gets Jordan Marshall. And I think Ohio State understands that more than it did a few months ago. And I think Ohio State has ramped that up. And I think that's why you've seen him, me personally, I've started to lean a little bit toward Ohio State. When if you asked me 2 months ago, I would have said, yeah, this kid's going to Michigan. So, he's been to Michigan quite a few times. We're going to tell the folks how it is. He's been to Michigan 3 times. He's been to Ohio State 3 times. The spring is going to be huge for his visits. Is he getting to Columbus to watch spring practice, or is he going up to Ann Arbor more often to watch spring practice? Those folks at the Wolverine do a great job covering recruiting. They're all over Jordan Marshall's recruitment, as are you, Matt, and they seem confident that Michigan's made a good enough impact. Ohio State's starting to feel a little bit more confident, I think, that they're really making some headway getting into his brain and talking to him about that. So, as important as running back is, like you said, Trevion Henderson will be gone next year in all likelihood. Evan Pryor probably not in the picture anymore. Maybe, but you don't know. And Mayan Williams certainly won't be. You've got a chance to step on campus and be a 1-2 punch with Dallin Hayden and Jordan Marshall if you choose that. And as good of a player as Stacey Gage is, I think that we can probably stem this conversation at it's Jordan Marshall and Jordan Marshall and Jordan Marshall. And that's it. Because you have to get Jordan Marshall.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point about how the state of Ohio is a little bit behind in terms of football all year round. Football exists from July when they can start doing 7-on-7s to December when state championships happen, and that's it. Whereas right now, coaches in Florida and Texas and elsewhere are gearing up for spring practices like it's a college program, and that's. Ohio has a proud high school football tradition, but now it's getting a little, prehistoric, in my opinion. But we're not here to talk about that. As it relates to Jordan Marshall, Ohio State neck and neck in his recruitment, but a school that I could see making some noise here is Wisconsin. Now that Luke Fickell has taken over the program, Fickell and Marshall have not just a good relationship as it stands from recruiting, but they have a personal relationship. Marshall is friends with Fickell's sons, so he knows the family on a personal level. He has, as the elders would say, has broken bread, if you will, with the Fickell family. And now that Luke Fickell is running the show at Wisconsin, which pounds their chest and stomps their feet on being running back one of the million running back U's. That's a guy, a running back like Jordan Marshall in the right system, in the right program with the right tradition, like Wisconsin is, can revitalize a program like that, which, as we've seen, kind of has, been on a downward spiral just a little bit. These aren't the Wisconsin teams that were playing for Big Ten championships that we saw just a few years ago. Now there's new life in the building with Luke Fickell. We've all seen what he can do. He took Cincinnati to the playoff, for goodness sake. Now you give him Power 5 resources in the Big Ten where he's comfortable at. A guy like Jordan Marshall is going to be at the top of his board regardless of position as well. So expect Wisconsin to make some noise here too in that recruitment.